You gotta punch. You got to let punches go. Your volume of punches is too low. You're not punching. But you got to punch. Okay, well, you got to try. You got to. You do not need to have another bullshit decision. I'm telling you.
Oh, left hand Chambers is down. What a punch that was! What a punch from Vladimir Klitschko! Stunning finish!
The Unbreakable Laws of Emanuel Steward. When a fighter wants to become invincible, there's only one man to call. Even Eminem made the call, and he's been boxing with Emanuel for at least 13 years.
Yeah, boxing is hard, man. It's hard. Like, I've been boxing for like 13 years, just sparring, just messing around. I mess around with Emanuel Steward, and he's
the best.
Yeah.
He's the best.
Because Steward didn't just rebuild fighters, he rebuilt men. Inside boxing, outside boxing, it didn't matter. If you walked into that Detroit basement, you walked out with something harder to break. And that was Steward's real power. Not creating champions, creating invincible versions of whoever stepped in front of him. And that's why his teachings aren't tips or techniques. They're laws. Laws that forge the most dangerous, most disciplined, most unshakable fighters in the world. These are the unbreakable laws of Emanuel Steward.
But the Kronk was a complete another story. No one welcomed me in there very nicely. Everyone was very angry. They even had like a lot of guys sparring with no head guards. And yeah, very brutal. Everyone's there to work and you spar whoever you put in with, kind of.
Law 1. The Law of Religion. Kronk didn't create champions because Detroit produced rare athletes. Kronk created champions because Emanuel Steward built something stronger than skill. A religion. And like any religion, the first test wasn't power. It was commitment. Every new kid had to survive 2 weeks of pure cardio before touching a glove. No sparring, no pads. Just show up early, work until your legs shake, and return the next day without excuse. It wasn't about fitness. It was a vetting process. And only the strong survived it. Only the ones who refused to break were allowed to stay.
Basically, these guys would bring gym wars to the gym. And Emanuel would love it. I mean, every day was a gym war at Kronk boxing gym.
You didn't walk into Kronk to express yourself. You walked in to surrender, to let Steward's system erase your habits and rebuild you his way. And the moment you accepted that discipline, you weren't just training anymore. You were part of the Kronk faith. Greatness repeated itself there not because the fighters were special, but because the gym was a temple, and Steward was the architect of a belief strong enough to change how men fought. That is Law 1, the law of religion. Before you can rise, you must belong.
You go down one flight of stairs. You feel the heat rising as you go down. Some ways I would imagine it's like Dante's Inferno.
The Kronk Gym produced champions, it produced Cadillacs.
Law 2, the law of mental stamina. Kronk didn't just build fighters who could throw harder. It built fighters who could think under fire, fighters whose minds didn't break when everyone else's did. And that began with the environment. First, the heat. Kronk wasn't warm, it was suffocating. A room so hot the walls sweated and the air felt heavy in your lungs. Steward did it on purpose, because if your mind panics in discomfort, the fight is already lost. If you could stay composed in that room, you could stay composed anywhere. Second, the chaos. Sparring wasn't quiet technique work. The ring was surrounded by people yelling, Banging, screaming, judging, noise everywhere, pressure everywhere. You learn to create silence inside your own head, even when the gym exploded around you. That silence was your weapon. Third, the wolves. At Kronk, the round didn't end when you got tired. That's when it really began. Fresh fighters were thrown at you the moment you faded. No mercy, no breaks. Your body failed long before your mind was allowed to. And that's the point of Law 2. At Kronk, you weren't being trained to survive a round. You were being trained to survive yourself. Mental stamina is when your structure holds, your decisions stay clean, and your faith in the system doesn't crack, even when your body is begging you to quit. This law forged a different kind of fighter. Not just tough, not just skilled. Unshakable. That is Law 2, the law of mental stamina. Because at Kronk, your mind had to be stronger than your opponent's punches.
Yeah, and I said, well, we have to knock him out early. My attack on all of my fighters is a solid left jab. The jab is my key, but ultimately I want to knock out. And the jab will set up the big punch, much like he did with Yuri Foreman.
Law 3, the law of total shutdown. Kronk fighters didn't enter the ring to compete. They entered to remove the opponent's ability to exist in the fight. This was Steward's real philosophy. Don't outbox your enemy. Don't outwork him. Shut him down so thoroughly he has no choices left. A fight, in Steward's world, was not won by talent or style. It was won by erasing the other man's options until he had nothing left but damage and panic. And Kronk had a blueprint for this. First, take his rhythm. A stiff, punishing jab that never stopped coming. Not thrown for points, thrown to blind him, to freeze him, to make him second-guess every step. When you control a man's rhythm, you control his decisions. Second, take his position. Steward taught perfect distance like a religion. You stand where you can hurt him, and he cannot hurt you. It feels to the opponent like the world is closing in, every angle taken, every escape sealed, every inch of ground denied. Third, take his hope. This is where Kronk separated from everyone else. When the opponent began to fade, Kronk fighters didn't coast. They didn't wait for a decision. They turned the screws. They cut off the ring. They escalated their pressure. They forced the enemy into a psychological corner where panic replaces strategy and instinct replaces thought. By then, the fight was already over. The knockout was just the final symptom of a system that had already succeeded. This wasn't aggression. This wasn't a brawler's mentality. This was total shutdown, the systematic removal of the enemy's safety, comfort, and confidence. Inside Kronk, knockouts weren't surprises. They were the logical consequence of a man who could no longer defend himself, no longer think clearly, no longer believe he had a chance. And Steward preached the same message beyond boxing. If you leave your enemy options, you leave him hope. If you leave him hope, you leave him dangerous. Kronk fighters won because they ended the fight mentally before they ended it physically. They dismantled a man's structure, then his courage, then his consciousness. This was the purpose of every jab, every angle, every moment of disciplined pressure. Shut him down. Completely. Totally. Without negotiation. That is Law 3, the law of total shutdown. A conflict is not over when you win. It's over when the enemy has nothing left.